for joining.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you, sir.
All right, so we'll be starting in a minute. Thank you so much, sir, for joining in.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks.
All right, good evening, everyone. Can you confirm that you can hear me? Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Nice.
All right, so thank you everyone for joining in for this particular call. Thank you so much for sparing your time. It's been nice working together with the team as a whole, and thank you so much to Mr. Ridwan for joining in early on. Mr. Ridwan was a part of our morning class for artificial intelligence, but unfortunately he couldn't make his presentation and had to exit the call because he had to go to pray. But we are happy to have him in this evening class for blockchain, NFTs, and Metaverse. And we look forward to hearing from him as pertaining the topic for today, and we want to just learn from him as much as we can. So thank you once again, everybody, for joining in for this call. Sorry, I'm a little bit low on light in my background, so my video may not be turned on. I will try my possible best to share the screen so that we can see we can see the mentors. And for those who are in lighted environments, please, you can kindly turn on your video so that we know that they are participants in the call. So my name is Dennis Williams, and I'll be your moderator for today. And heading straight into today's session, we want to just we want to introduce our mentors, firstly, those that will be on call with us for today's class. And our first mentor for today, like we have said, is Mr. Ridwan Badmos. Mr. Ridwan Badmos is a tech lawyer, multidisciplinary privacy professional, and CTO. His expertise extends across various specialized technology law domains encompassing artificial intelligence, blockchain, cloud computing, and other cutting-edge technologies, being a certified information privacy technologist with the ILAPP and an esteemed one trust. Sorry. Somebody's mic is muted, so please kindly turn off your mic. It's unmuted, I mean. So I'm continuing with Mr. Ridwan's profile. Okay, where was I? Okay, one esteemed One Trust Fellow of Privacy Regulation into functional application that handles user data, a significant void he diligently fills. Furthermore, his unique position in working across numerous complex projects bridges the gap between legal and technical teams, thereby harmonizing two distinct domains in the expansive technological landscape. Ridwan adore for the effective implementation of privacy and security best practices is evident in his active involvement in shaping industry standards set for an eminent organization such as the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the NIST, the Cloud Security Alliance CSA, and the Center of Internet Security CIS. Thank you so much, Mr. Ridwan, once again for joining us. We appreciate your presence here, and we look forward to hearing from you very soon. But we'll be going over to introduce our second mentor. He's not yet here with us, but I'm sure he'll be joining us shortly. Sorry.
I think, sorry to interrupt, but I believe he's here. I can see George on the participants. So I think Mr. George is before, sorry. So if you can
Oh,
confirm. Yeah.
okay, yes. Thank you so much for helping us confirm that, Mr. Ridwan. So our second mentor for today is Mr. George Uyewuchi. George currently heads fintech engagements for First Bank and its subsidiaries across Africa at its first digital innovation lab, setting up and driving the bank fintech strategy. George is a link that connects technology, business, and ecosystem partnership. He is at the intersection of products, partnership, and ecosystem building. He has led the technology solution products development for the SME banking business of a leading commercial bank and has taken numerous financial and non-financial products from idea to market and growth. He has led digital transformation in the client engagement processes for leading commercial bank, including one of the Nigerian banking's industry first end-to-end account opening for corporate accounts and SME digital lending. His team has won numerous awards for powering growth in SMEs. He also provides advisory for CRIP Africa towards developing blockchain infrastructure and building the operating system for African business on the blockchain and host knowledge session on blockchain application and various industry within the African context. Thank you so much, Mr. George, for joining in. We are happy to have you once again with us in this quarter, and we look forward to hearing from your vast knowledge and experience in this space. So, going over to the agenda for today. Firstly, we'll be taking our mentors presentation. So we'll be giving the opportunities for our mentors to just give us a 20 minutes presentation of the topic for today. Our topic for today is introduction into blockchain, NFTs, and Metaverse. So we'll be hearing from our mentors. We'll be giving them 20 minutes to do that. And then we'll be taking our mentees presentation. We'll be taking pictures, and then we'll take feedback from our mentors and would take questions and answers before we call it a day. So over to Mr. Ridwan. Please, we want to give you the floor for 20 minutes to just give us your own thoughts and take into the topic for today, introduction to blockchain, NFT, and metaverse.
Okay, thank you very much again, Dennis. Even though I would like to propose, I mean, if that's fine with Mr. George, he goes first, because I think that I'll be looking more into the legal landscape of these emerging technologies. And I think it is very important for us to understand some technical concepts before we dive into that. Of course, I'm going to be talking about some of the technical issues or technical terms as well, but if that's fine by him. But if he wants me to go first, then that's also okay. Mr. George.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ridwan. So we'll be handing over to Mr. George. Sir, if you are here with us, please, we would like to give you 20 minutes for your presentation into the topic before we have Mr. Ridwan. Mr. George, are you with us, sir?
Yeah, can you hear me? Sorry, I'm kind of on the road.
All right, we can hear you,
yeah.
sir.
Oh, okay, yeah. So sorry in case there's a bit of interference. Probably thought I would already be home and settled, but still a bit on the road though. I'm close by. Anyways, that's fine, Mr. Ridwan. Thanks. I mean, it could happen either ways, really. Um, whether they learn about the legal framework, I mean, first, or they learn about or get insights, about the technical, well, the general context of it. I mean, either ways, I mean, the knowledge, I'm sure, is not arranged in a particular way in the human brain, anyways. All right. Um, Introduction to blockchain, NFTs, metaverse. I think that from the very, very beginning, if you don't mind me asking, the class mix, are these like legal? Is it mixed, or this is like what Lego people from the Lego background, or Lego studies, or is the class? Do we have non-Lego um would I say practitioners or students or enthusiasts in the audience or in the class, so that I'm a bit I know how I would capture this.
All right, so please, can we indicate if we are into the legal field or we are just enthusiasts trying to learn about the blockchain space, the blockchain NFT and metaverse space? So please indicate, you can indicate by chats in the chat box, by sending a message in the chat box, so that we know the kind of crowd we have in and amongst us. So thank you so much. Please, Jessica, please, can we have other people confirming? Thank you. All right, thank you so much. It seems a lot of our mentees here currently are law students and
Okay, that's fine.
lawyers.
Okay, that's fine. So, all right. Thank you. I just wanted to know a bit of the audience mix, so that I know probably where a lot of the um case studies or examples, or when I throw, would be able to, they will be relatable, right? Okay, so and then blockchain. Let's start with the very first one, blockchain. What is blockchain? All right, what is this whole wave around blockchain? I think the madness of, by the way, I think the trend of AI started, I mean, I think it has calmed the rave, the initial rave that we had around everything linked to blockchain. I think AI has balanced that rave now. So those terminologies trend. 1 minute is blockchain, the next minute is AI, and all that. So blockchain. What is blockchain basically, in the lamest way possible, that we can explain this without getting too technical, right? Um, it is just what you can describe as a network of computers, right? A network of files, right? A network of files across numerous computers linked together, right? And these files are what, in that world, we typically call ledgers, right? These ledgers or these files are basically where we write information, right? The typical use of ledger, where you write and store information for transactional use or for transactional purposes, right? And transaction doesn't just mean um, buying and selling in this case. Basically, transaction is where you basically interchanging information for whatever purpose, right? And we would get a little bit of that as as we have these classes go further. So basically, the interconnectivity of multiple systems are now in millions across the world, right? All linked together, what we call nodes, yeah. And these ledgers are where you write and store information. And what makes it unique really is the fact that, because these ledgers are where you write and store information linked to numerous systems all across the globe, information you store or write on the chain, and that's why it's called the chain, right, is spread across the chain, such that it becomes difficult for you to change what we call immute. When you say something is immutable, it becomes difficult for you to easily change, right, whatever it is that you have stored on that chain, without the content of the entire chain. So what happens is that if you have something stored on one particular place today, let's say my hard drive or my system, or even if it's in the cloud, right? You have it saved in one hard drive in the cloud, or in one drive on my system. Anything I change there you might never know what was there before now, right? I can easily make changes to that thing without someone can make changes to that thing without my authorization, right? Someone can be able to rewrite that thing I have written, right, without my authorization. So it's very easy for me to play around things, or it's very easy for people to play around things that I've written in that space, right, in that particular place, and saved on my laptop. If somebody steals it, right, or somebody gains unauthorized entry to it. Same thing, even if it was the cloud, and somebody be able to gain authorized entry to where I'm saving it in the cloud. Let's say my Google Drive, right, my email address, right. Even though that email address is in the cloud, because there's only one point of entry, right, and one point of exit, which is you being able to sign into my account or sign out of my account. If you're able to hack my password, or if you're able to get access to my email address, you are able to get an email account, you're able to get access to my drive, right, and get access to whatever I have written in my drive and make changes to it. But when you're dealing with a chain, right, what we call blockchain, because what I share or store, information I store on that chain, is written across 1,000, a million, tens of million computers in bits and pieces. It means that I have to go across, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million networks to be able to change whatever it is that I am trying to get unauthorized access to. So it makes it difficult, because by the time, if I get it access into one part of that chain, one computer, 10 computer, there's no way I could hack 1,000 computers. There's no way I'm going to hack 1 million computers to go start making changes, the same changes across board. So those records of what is written on that chain becomes immutable. It becomes something that is hard to change, really. So it's basically, a platform or an infrastructure where people, or you can store information or data, right, across a chain of computers, or across a chain of ledgers, right, sitting in what we call nodes all over the globe, right? And what it now does is, because of how secured it is, it now becomes an infrastructure to build different kind of services, different kind of applications, different kind of, solutions on top of it, that now performs the same typical thing that we do in the traditional, you know in the traditional world, or in the traditional space, but in more efficient and in more secured manner, which is really the number one selling point or uniqueness of the blockchain, right? The top selling point of that blockchain is security, right? So it becomes a very reliable place to be able to carry out such things that you do today, but in a more secured and trustworthy, manner, right? Where you know that whatever you put on there, right, becomes much more difficult for somebody to, to emulate. So basically, just a chain of computers, right? All, brought together or linked together in the lamest way. I can put this, not to be too technical, for you to just store information. It's just as simple as that, right? Um, and it's used, you can use it in different ways, because a lot of us here are on the legal side. We'll be making a lot of references to the kind of things that can happen, legally, right? The kind of things that you can use, or how you can, use blockchain, on to facilitate your legal journey, or interact with it within that whole legal space, right? One of the big use today, even in the country, what is happening right now, some of the projects going on in the country, is trying to use it to become like a reliable place to store information around population, right? How do we manage our birth and death records, right? How do we manage the population data, right, of the country, of a particular country? Today we have serious defragmentation of data, right? If you go back to time to say, okay, uh, um, pick any of some of our forefathers or our grandparents born in the early 90s, even in the mid 90s, and try to dig out information on them, try to dig out record on them, you see that it's almost impossible to get records around their birth, right? A lot of them today, a lot of our grandfathers, age mates, they celebrate estimated birthdays. A lot of them don't can't really tell what their exact birthday date is. I mean, we all know the debacle that we have had to endure in the country, with our current president around when was he actually born, right? Some say 72, some say 74, next tomorrow is 80 something, the other day is 90 something. Till today, right, there's no reliable source of truth, right, around when was the president, of a country born, right? And so these are kind of things that would be eliminated, right? Assuming those informations or those records were managed on a blockchain infrastructure, right? Because there is no way you would ever hear him come tomorrow and say it's no longer 72, or it's no longer 82, it's now 70, 72, or it's no longer 90, this is now 81, right? Because that record is stored across so many places that you can't modify all of them. There will always be, if you try to change one, the other places where those records are stored, we reinforce it, right? So it's and that is why the things that you write to the blockchain through what we call smart contracts, right? Once you create that contract, you can't change it, because those contracts are written across so many computers linked together in the chain. So when you come to things like managing, information, right, it becomes like your most reliable place to store and manage information, right? Like the population information I just called. So as we move down the conversation, we'll start looking at a lot of use cases and how we are going to deploy blockchain, right? On in the legal field, right? How blockchain basically, can make sense for you as somebody in the legal profession, right? All the things that you can do with it, how you can manage, secure agreements, right? That cannot be easily. Somebody cannot come tomorrow and try to, change abruptly the terms of that agreement. How you use the smart contracts in the blockchain, to enforce agreements, right? Such that those agreements, you don't even need to go and pursue anybody, they execute themselves, right? So we'll start looking at things like that. Quickly, before I go to NFTs and the metaverse, very quickly, just to quickly talk about this buzzword that we're going to be hearing a lot throughout the lifespan of this class, right? Smart contract, right? Smart contracts, basically, just like also the literal word is, one is smart, right? The other one is contract. In our regular legal world today, when you say you have a contract, it means that you have an agreement between, um, two or more, right, individuals, right? You have an agreement that X would happen in X way and by X time, right? You have an agreement on something that's been documented, right? That's when you say, I have a contract. Now, an agreement that has been documented. Now, but when you say you have a smart contract, right, it's basically bringing that same context, that same whole concept into the blockchain. And why is it called smart contract now? Because now when you have a smart contract, which is how, like I said before, how things, that the same agreement that you have in today's world is written, in the blockchain, via in a technical way, which we are going to explore later. But basically, that smart contract in the blockchain executes itself. So unlike in today's world, right, if you have a contract between both of us, somebody needs to execute that contract, right? Somebody needs to make the terms of that contract happen. If I said, okay, at the end of this class, right, by once everybody stays on this class and nobody drops off till 10 o'clock. Once it's 10 o'clock, they would all be due to be credited 100,000. Now, when it gets to 10 o'clock, if that is a contract that is given to everybody when they join this class, when it gets to 10 o'clock, somebody has to, look at everybody that has been in this class and start sending 100,000 to each and every one of them. But if it's a smart contract, right, on the blockchain, once you create that contract to say by 10 o'clock, right, for everybody that is here, they will get 100,000, right, and you initiate, right, that smart contract, execute it on the blockchain, right? It's called smart contract because nobody needs to execute it anymore. Immediately it gets to 10 o'clock, right? It just checks who is in this class that is here, right? And the person gets 100K. The proprietor of JIP J sorry JIIPC GIPC JIIPCC, right, cannot come and change maybe by 9:55. Say, no, you know what, we cannot do 100,000 again. We know that we wanted to just encourage you all. Don't worry, we'll just give you 10,000 naira. So that, you guys tried for staying here till 10. No, there's no, they can't change the terms of that contract anymore. Once it's 10 o'clock on the dot, you can't go and press any button to stop it from happening, right? It will execute itself, right? That is why it's called smart contract, right? It will smartly execute itself, within the terms that it has been, recorded or created with, right? So everything that happens on the blockchain basically is led, with smart contracts. So we're going to understand. I mean, this is just trying to be as plain as possible, but as we dig more, we're going to understand on a more insight around how these things work, like in real life, and how they also connect to our field, right? NFTs, metaverse, there's a handshake between both of them. NFTs basically, the acronym NFTs are non-fungible tokens, and NFTs are basically, uh, uh, now when you see, let me introduce the word token, right? In the blockchain, there are different elements and concepts of how you interact in blockchain, right? As it is today, one of them are NFTs, and these are like assets, right? These are like unique assets that are uniquely identified in a particular way, right? A lot of people confuse NFTs with like arts, because when you see NFTs, most of the time you see pictures of, you see a picture with an ape, or you see a picture with something, right? Those are just graphical representation, right, to make it more relatable. But the NFT itself, the token itself, right, is the record of that thing, that content, that piece of art, the record behind what you're seeing, that makes it, that makes it unique. That there are no two ways, there are no two of them in the entire world, just like you have maybe fingerprint today, right? That there are no two of them in the entire world. Those tokens that represent the ownership of that particular asset that you're holding. So NFTs are basically ways that you can own asset and lay ownership to those assets, through those tokens. And they are called non-fungible because um, you can't break them, right? Even though there's a concept later you will introduce called fractional NFTs, right? Something that was introduced to show how you can not necessarily break the NFTs, but own. You can't break the assets, right? But you can own bits of that entire whole, right? Like how you have like a building with 10 flats and somebody sells each flat to 10 different people. Nobody owns, you can't break that building, right? You can't break that 10-floor building of 10 flats. You can't pieces it because, okay, I want my own flat, and then you take the flat away from that story building. It will fall, right? The entire thing will fall. right? So, but we can all be 10 people that own that entire building, each of us having 10 flats, right? So that's the concept of fractional NFTs, where you now try to fractionalize like the ownership of that asset, that building. But NFT gives you that I am the one that owns that building, right? And there's no way, there's nothing you can do to change that ownership except I authorize, I move it to you. And whoever owns that token, or that token is tied to, owns that asset. And that asset can be artwork, it can be digital content, it can be video, it can be anything, right? The one that is very popular we all see are artworks or art pieces, and that's why people just confuse NFTs to mean artworks, right? But those are just one of the common ways of seeing NFTs. But NFTs have extended to just about anything, right? It can be, people are now selling real estate using NFTs. So as you're buying that NFT, you're buying a piece of that real estate. So purchase of that NFT gives you a piece of the real estate. As you're buying an NFT for an artist, it can be an NFT that is tied to the artist's album. It can be an NFT of a ticket that is tied to the concert, right, of that artist. So as you buy that NFT, you have access to attend the concert of that artist, right? So that is basically what NFTs are. They're just those tokens that give you um, ownership of an asset, right? And when it's fractional, what we call fractional NFTs, it means that you own a part of that asset. So it doesn't divide the asset, but it gives you claim to a part, right, of that particular asset. Um, we look at more of them as we also are good. And lastly, I think it was metaverse, right? Metaverse is a very interesting concept, right? And metaverse is just like how you say in a very lame way, right? How NFTs um, how NFTs came to life, like I used to put it, right? But in a very lame way, it's just trying to give a semblance of the physical, what we feel and how we interact physically, create it in a virtual world, right? So that that virtual world also has real life impact of the interactions happening in that virtual world. So how you look at what we are doing today in the entire physical world, right? Trying to recreate those interactions, trying to recreate those activities, right, in the virtual world. Then not just making it virtual like video games, right, but bringing that virtual interaction to have physical or real life implications. So as you're doing that virtual interaction, right, those virtual interactions are connected to real life consequences, right? And that is the uniqueness of metaverse. And metaverse ride a lot on the infrastructure of NFTs, which we are going to go a little bit deeper, and you get around how both of them interchange themselves. But basically, it's as simple as just trying to say, okay, we are in this class right now, yeah. We know that we can attend a class or a lecture sitting. Sorry, we can have a class or a lecture sitting in a physical space in the class. We are having one here now on Zoom, but imagine that, and we are not touching each other, right? But imagine that there's a metaverse where we are having this class and this conversation, and we are all together, represented with our various avatars, right? Like a hologram that represents each and every one of us, right? As we move ahead, you start hearing situations whereby, because we're in that virtual reality space, right? Whatever we do there, even though it's our avatars that represent us, have real life implications, right? If my avatar is actually touching your avatar in some kind of way, for example, and you're a lady, you can actually in a real life physical court actually go and sue me for assault, right? It's funny, right? So I'm here, you're in your house, but our avatars are interacting in a class in the metaverse, right? And I'm being in a very intrusive, unwelcome approach to you with my avatar, you can actually sue for assault, right? So the things that we do in that space have real life implications, right? In that class, we can have interactions that would translate to real life things. So Metaverse is just trying to recreate this physical world in a virtual reality space, to expand what we can do beyond the limitations of the physical land that we have today, which is a finite thing. And the ability to do all that is from the technology that blockchain provides, right? And that's why you always hear metaverse and blockchain going together. It's also from a technology that blockchain provides. Same thing with NFTs. They're all riding on the technology that blockchain infrastructure provides. So just to give us that, I know I've taken a little bit of time, but just to give us that introduction, as as less technical as I could manage to achieve for those three concepts. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. George, for running us through the introduction to blockchains, NFTs, and metaverse in very, very simple and easy to understand terms. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate your presentation. It was really wonderful. And I'm sure our mentees who are on call are listening. Please, we want this session to take an interactive frame. So please, we want to see you use the chat box, use your emojis, just to show the mentors that you are paying attention and you're also in class. So thank you so much once again, Mr. George. We'll be going over to Mr. Ridwan for more technical legal terms, right, into the introduction of the topic. Mr. Ridwan, over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate Mr. George for he has really done a great justice to these topics, and that is the reason I actually proposed or suggested that he goes first, because ordinarily, I mean, if you don't understand these technologies, I see no way. I mean, most of the technologies now, if you don't understand them, I'm referring to emerging technologies. If you don't understand them, the technical, I mean, so it beats. I mean, if you don't understand the foundational scope, you might really not understand or fathom the legal implications that could actually come out of it. And the reason I think I have all reasons to say this, considering my background, I mean, in terms of not just having a legal background in these emerging technologies, but also having a taste of the technical, the technical aspects. So I'm going to share a bit of my experience in terms of learning, blockchain, NFTs, and the metaverse, and how it actually relates with since, I mean, as established already, we have, I mean, most of the attendees are actually law students or lawyers. So but even though I wouldn't advise anybody to take the same approach I took, because it is very strenuous, I mean, I would still want to stress the fact that it is very important for you to understand the the basics of the technical terms. So when we're talking about cryptography, we're talking about hashing, we're talking about the different characteristics of the blockchain. When we're talking about decentralization, immutable or immutability, we're talking about transparency, security, and the likes. So you really need to understand all these things so that you will be able. I mean, there are different ways you can provide legal services in these areas. I mean, ranging from you advising clients as regards the structure of their company. You can actually, yes, because ordinarily the legal landscape actually molds to an extent. It molds how a blockchain company can actually be structured. I've seen that a number of times because I work with a lot of blockchain companies, and the reason being that and then, okay, before I go back to the reason, I was talking about the different ways you can actually work with you in this space. So I mentioned one, which is helping them to, advising them generally as regards advising them as regards what's the building itself and how it can, advising them generally, probably when they have third parties that they're working with and they need an agreement that you might need to help them revise or even draft or even negotiate. So it is very important for you to understand what's doing. And there's no way you will really understand a business or what the solution that they are building unless you understand some of these terms. And the other hand, I will come back to this as well, because this is actually the most technical part. But the other side, which is more of the legal work, is when you interpret regulations, just like we have the rules of the rules for issuance of digital tokens and the likes. So we actually call it digital tokens, digital assets actually interchangeable. So it is easier for lawyers to actually interpret these regulations, just like the law I just mentioned. That's not the full name, but then in short, you can call it the rules on issuance of digital assets. When you talk about virtual assets service providers, talk about some custody of digital assets and the likes. So you are able to explain this law to them and the likes. But even at that, there are still some limitations if you don't understand these, foundational principles, these foundational characteristics of these technologies, because you're going to come across different terms like digital tokens, blockchain, virtual assets, digital assets, digital tokens, and lots of them like that. So if you don't really if you don't really understand everything that Mr. George has said, it might actually be very difficult for you to really, go deep into that space. So I just wanted to quickly explain that. The reason I said it is really important, and for lawyers, that's stages. That learning in stages is actually very important for you to understand the foundational principles first before learning the legal implications, so to say. So as regards my background, okay, can you hear me? Can I continue?
Yes, I'll continue.
Okay, great. So as regards my background, when I was entering, when I wanted to start some practicing, the first thing I actually started doing was, because when I started my practice, I also started, I started with technology law practice, in the sense that I immediately after law school, even before our results was released, I started learning blockchain. I had the opportunity to meet a mentor who, I'm a very shy person, so to say. It's difficult for me to, and I would really advise against that. Now I know better. It's easier for you to reach out to people, and ask them questions than you learning on your own. You going down the rabbit hole and trying to find all these things yourself. So it's better to have a guide actually. But then the major thing I just got from the beginning was that I was able to hear the mentor talk about the different areas of emerging technologies and how lawyers can actually how they can key into these areas and make names for themselves, so to say. So when I started, I didn't start by just learning the basics. I really went deep. I started with blockchain. That was actually my first technology that I learned. I started learning blockchain the technical way, not the legal aspects of blockchain, because I was really interested in technology generally as well. So I started learning blockchain. Of course, before you can even start coding, if you're a developer, a Web3 developer, a blockchain developer, you ought to understand what's the technology is about. So I went through all that, and then I started learning. I went back to web dev. That's a web development when you use just like you have in Web 2. You explain all this. I believe you kind of this is relatable. This is you understand what I'm saying essentially, because I went through your slides and I see that you've already explained what Web 1 and Web 2 and Web 3 is. So Web 2 is the use of technologies like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to build websites or web applications. So I learned that. I had to learn that before because you're building Web3 on, not essentially, but yes, you're actually building Web3 on Web2 platforms in a way, because for you to be able to access the blockchain, you have to kind of integrate websites, web applications, to the blockchain, which is going to serve as a database. So you don't really need to know all this. You just need to know it at the minimum or at the basics, so that you will be. I mean, when you have clients that you're talking to, you'll be able to kind of decipher what they're actually what they're saying, and how you can actually provide solutions to their issues. So I'm saying all this. I'm saying all this generally because the thing is that there are some things that you really need to understand. I mean, for it to be easy for you to really flow, in the space, so to say. And maybe just to make it easy for everyone, I'm going to just break them down into three. And the first one is going to be the technical jargons. And that's what I've actually been talking about in terms of you understanding the foundational principles. And that is also the reason why it's one of the major issues we have regarding the adoption of blockchain in the first place, because there's a lot of technical terms, and if you know UI/UX is a domain in the technology space. It means user interactions and user experience. So it's where I don't want to call them technologists now. Of course, they work in the tech space, so you can kind of call them technologists. But the reason I don't want to say that is they are more of the people that are UI/UX designer, they are called designers actually. So what they do is actually to design web apps before it is now developed or code or kind of developed through the use of codes. So when I talk about UI/UX, the reason UI/UX is actually important when you're building applications is to make it interesting to users and to make it easy for users to use. So blockchain did not have that from the beginning. So it was when you're dealing with, if you go to Binance, if you're not really, that's why we don't have a lot of people, kind of signing up on these, blockchain platforms, because some of them don't really understand, what is going on. So in terms of the word of the choice of words, then in terms of the interface itself, the interface is what you're interacting with, the website or web application you're interacting with. So all those things, if you don't really understand those terms, it's going to be difficult for you to really work in the space as a lawyer. So you really need to get all these details, and that is why what Mr. George has said is quite important. And then the next one is going to be the lack of regulatory clarity. So, and this is not typical to Nigeria. It is all over the place. It's just that we're kind of slower, but we have this regulatory lack of regulatory clarity all over the world until a couple of years back, when we started having regulations being issued by in different jurisdictions. So we have MiCA in EU now, that talks about digital currencies, and that talks about different tokens. Now we have, and that is one of the things I will also want to point at, because I mentioned the digital rules for the issuance of digital assets. So you really need to, for you to advise your clients if what they are building, if the digital assets that they are going to be issuing on their platform is security tokens or utility tokens or NFTs, and the implications of law of regulation, you really need to understand what these tokens are and how they operate, and how the interpretation, how legal, probably legal maxims or legal principles, how they relate to these different types of tokens. Like when we talk about the rules of issuance, the SEC rules, we are really talking about security tokens. They apply to security tokens. But how do you know that this is security tokens? And that's what wants me to go back to what Mr. George was saying as regards NFTs, when he was saying that you could actually represent land ownership with NFTs, and that is true. And the other aspect is when you want to, in terms of real estate investments. So we have something called how do you own piece of a real estate investment or of a real estate. That could actually also be through security. So how do you advise your clients if the best way to go? According to law, of course, because the one of the work or one of the obligations or responsibilities of blockchain developers. I won't call them the blockchain developers. I'll call them rather blockchain architects. And those are the words that you're going to get familiar with. So blockchain architect is actually supposed to come up with the best strategy or the best kind of solutions that they would build for a particular solution. So there, if you want to create a real estate solution, the blockchain architect is supposed to determine if it is going to be, if the best way to go is NFTs or security tokens, depending on on the scenario. So, but as well as for you, you need to also kind of be able to explain to them that these are the legal implications for them to also decide if they want to go this way or they want to go the other way. So these things are kind of, you see that they are actually kind of similar. So how do you now ensure that this is what this means and this is what the other one means? So this is quite important, and that is the reason you also really need to, you also really need to understand the regulatory implications, what the regulations says and the likes. And that will also take me to, I'm still on regulatory clarity, that will take me to explaining why it is also important for you to look at other jurisdictions, how their law is actually working. That has really helped me a lot, because the thing is that when we look at the Nigeria legal landscape for blockchain, you'd see because of how CBN has actually been reacting to the adoption of blockchain, that's also one of the factors that affected how people.
Mr. Ridwan, are you still with us? Mr. Ridwan, can you hear us? Please, is it a general problem? Okay, okay. Um, I will just try to reach out to Mr. Ridwan. I'm sure he will try to join in back. It seems he's having a little network issue.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, sir. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you very much. I didn't know that my internet has been disconnected. I think I have light issues here. So can you hear me now, please? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll continue now. So I believe you said this class is actually supposed to be interactive, and I've been speaking for quite a while. Can anyone, aside Dennis, can anyone remind me where what I was talking about before I was disconnected? Anyone, please?
Yeah. So you are talking about the regulatory framework that has to do with blockchain.
Okay, thank you very much. That's right. Yeah, so I was talking about being conversant with the regulations in other jurisdictions as well, which is going to help, because when you look at other jurisdictions, that will also help you to, even if it is different, even if the regulatory landscape in Nigeria is different from that of other countries, it will still go a long way to help you to understand, how these things might, how they might, kind of develop, how they might build up, how things might change. Because you see that even though it's not in all circumstances, not in all cases, you see that Nigeria looks at all the developed countries, especially the EU, to kind of pick one of two things from their regulation, or their regulatory framework. So it's quite important to look at other places. And the thing is, because another reason for that is because just like just like AI, blockchain. No, I won't say AI. I won't say AI. But blockchain generally is actually, we say it's decentralized, it's distributed, so it's globalized, sort of. So it's got across borders, and that's sometimes we have a kind of conflicts of law. And a very good example of this is when we're talking about DAOs. So I think one of the things I picked from the slides I saw was DAOs, where it was said to be distributed autonomous organizations. I know it to be decentralized autonomous organizations. So you can look that up. I know we use distributed and decentralized interchangeably sometimes, but they're actually different. Because when you talk about decentralized, it means it's not centralized, so to say. I mean, simply. And that's the traditional concept of blockchain. But when you're talking about distributed, we have different types of blockchain. We could have, the centralized and decentralized one. I mean, when we're talking about enterprise blockchain, so that is kind of still connected. What I mean is that it's kind of centralized. It's governed by a central authority, and we'll say it's that kind of system, that kind of distributed ledger. That kind of digital ledger is kind of it's distributed but not decentralized, even though decentralization is one of the core of blockchain. I hope you understand that point. But I think I'll just go to the third point, which still goes to the point that you need to really understand the basics of these technologies to be able to provide. Of course, as I said, you don't really need to go down the line like me to kind of, because I at a particular time was actually coding was using the programming language for blockchain to build that's used to build smart contracts, which is called Solidity. So I was coding dApps. I think you spoke about dApps a bit in your slides as well. That's decentralized applications. So I understood that the best way to actually provide legal service times because your legal advice could also shape how the companies how it is going to structure their own all of the products, so to say. And as I said, and that's because of legal implication. Because when we're talking about the SEC rules as well, I mean, recently we know that before you can operate as a virtual assets service provider, or before you can issue digital assets on your platforms, or even before you can build a digital assets issuance platform, as it is called, offering platform, actually, a digital assets offering platform. There are various requirements, and you really need to, as a company, your clients need to determine if they're capable of fulfilling those requirements. So it's actually if you have an insight into what they are doing and you understand what they're doing, that's when you'll be able to explain to them that these are the implications, these are the regulatory implications of what you want to do. And then they will quickly, because I had one incident like that in the past. I think that was around 2 years ago when I had a client that wanted to do two things. We have the SEC rules is actually kind of divided into four. You have the companies that want to issue digital assets, even if they don't own the platform. We have companies or entities that owns offering platforms where companies can come and issue digital assets. When talking about digital assets, it's also a way of raising investments. So that is why it is kind of regulated by the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. So the third one is custody. When an entity is kind of holding digital assets on behalf of another company or on behalf of individuals, then the first one is virtual assets service providers. And I don't want to go into that now. And the only thing I would just want to say about that is there's a rule or a kind of guideline that was issued by CBN when they actually reduced their reduced their kind of I don't want to say negative reactions to the blockchain space or blockchain community. So it's something you can actually look at the CBN guidelines regarding blockchain, how banks or financial institutions should relate with with blockchain companies, so to say. And you should also look at the circles on issuance of digital assets and the likes. So I was talking about a client that I had an interaction with some 2 years back. So what they wanted to do was to issue they wanted to issue real estate tokens, which is going to be security tokens, meaning that the token holders are going to have they're going to have ownership rights, so to say, in the company. And they also wanted to build a platform that is going to issue that security token. So what they wanted to do two of that, but it's not that they were not planning to open the platform to any company then. It's something that they would do at a later time. But because of the requirement, it was very difficult if you don't have the necessary funds. So it was very difficult for you to really fulfill all those requirements. So they couldn't, due to that reason, they couldn't actually continue with that. So, and one of the reasons for you to have all this knowledge, the regulatory aspects, and then understand what your clients wants to do as well, is because you're going to save them a lot of money. And they will also have that, so they will also have that foresight into, okay, what do we want to do, and how soon should we kind of start doing something else and not spend a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of efforts into a particular project. So I'm talking about, I think I've been talking about blockchain all this while, but all these things that I've actually been talking about it also kind of applies to NFTs and Metaverse. And when we're talking about different issues, I know maybe I'll talk a bit about the legal considerations or the legal implications of those things that Mr. Judge has talked about. So when you talk about smart contracts, one of the things that you really need to think about is enforceability, because smart contracts might not. Number one is that is it recognized by law that you can actually, of course, if we have a kind of meeting of the mind as lawyers, if you have a kind of two parties coming to agree that this is how they want to, as far as it is not in contravention to any any law, any regulatory requirements or regulatory provisions of law, then it is not illegal. But then we still have some issues surrounding the applicability or the enforceability of smart contracts across borders. And another thing that's, when we talk about smart contracts, some people will say it's a misnomer. I just want you to have that in mind, because sometimes you might not be able to use that the name smart contract to define smart contract itself. So because the thing is, when we talk about AI, and that is one of the ethical considerations of AI, that it has to be robust. And what's robust mean is that it has to, you have to build AI in a way that it's, when you build it for a particular task, and it is given another particular task, it should be able to handle that particular task. Not that it should be able to provide the expected outputs, but then it should be able to probably reject some that particular, maybe if it is going to be harmful, it should be, or even if it is not going, even if it does not know that it's going to be harmful, because it shouldn't know ordinarily, so to say, strictly. But if it's not programmed to do that particular task, then it should kind of reject, to kind of process that particular. So it's the same as smart contracts. So you can to an extent call artificial intelligence smart. When it comes to smart contracts, it is what it has been programmed to do that it's going to do. So there's no way of saying that, because, and the reason I'm saying this, to give a very good example, is when you have programmed it, you can't even, because it's on the blockchain, and one of the characteristics of blockchain is immutability. You can't you can't modify what has already been written in the blockchain. So that smart contract will just be, it will be abandoned, and you have to kind of program another smart contract. So those are some of the issues that you have with smart contracts, and you as lawyers also need to know somehow. And the other one about NFTs, I mean, we have a lot of issues surrounding the intellectual ownership, or the intellectual property rights of of NFTs, of owning NFTs. And not only that, when we're talking about real estate as well, I mean, that also has, kind of regulatory restrictions, because we already have an established way of, getting, of obtaining properties. And so if you want to do this for properties, I mean, the way of doing is, I won't really go deep into this, but it's most likely is going to be at the states or at the federal level, because there's already an established way of, of transferring property rights to individuals. So, and I think the best thing, and of course we always come up with, I mean, that's why we are technology lawyers, or even if we have technology lawyers here, or we have people here that wants to become founders of companies. One way of doing that, it's a problem, it's a kind of a blocker, but I believe it's something that we can really think about, of how you can work with governments, or how you might not even work with governments, but able to come up with a way of, of creating, real estate ownership rights in NFTs. And then when we talk about intellectual property as well, and this has to do with, when we're talking about issues with NFTs, we can also extend that to the metaverse, because you're using NFTs in the metaverse. So that's one of the, these two are kind of very integral. I mean, blockchain, NFTs, and metaverse, they are kind of, they are intertwined, because you use, blockchain is kind of the foundational backbone of the metaverse, because I mean, it's a digital economy kind of operates in the metaverse, where you don't spend fiat currency or real currencies. What you spend is virtual currencies, or tokens, or cryptocurrencies. So all these things are actually intertwined, and that's, I mean, it's very good for you to really take all these things together, for you to have a kind of a robust legal background, to be able to attend to a large group of clients, so to say. And then when we're talking about all these technologies again, we need to also think about privacy, and then privacy and data protection. And there are different legal implications of data protection and privacy in each of these emerging technologies. When we talk about blockchain, we're talking about immutability, we're talking about transparency. And these two things actually contravene privacy, the obligations of you you giving or respecting individuals and privacy. But it is not, that does not mean that it is impossible for you to achieve privacy in the blockchain. I'm going to be stopping in the next 3 minutes. And it doesn't mean that it's impossible for you to achieve privacy. There are different ways. And for you to, because these ways that you can use to kind of to achieve privacy in the blockchain are kind of technical, I mean, for now. But I think the what you can do as lawyers is actually to read about this. I mean, we have articles that talks about it that are not very technical, that uses layman terms, to talk about these things, so that you can talk about it, and see the implications, the legal and regulatory implications of doing this as well. And even if you have that obligation to reach out to the regulator, like the NDPC, Nigeria Data Protection Commission, to ask for further insights, because that's actually one of the things that you can do. But most people don't know that you can really you can consult the regulator, or the supervisory body, into if you have some issues. If you have determined that this way is this particular way of minimizing data protection issues will work, but then if you're not sure, you can actually consult them too. And that's so I won't really want to go into that, because we're not in the data protection class. But the point I'm trying to make is that there are lots of privacy issues there that you also really need to, and it doesn't really cause across borders, because one of the things I would want to mention before I forget is understanding the use cases. One of the things that's actually helped me a lot is looking at different use cases of blockchain in the supply management domain, or if you're using it for identity verification, or if you're using it for election. So there's a lot of things that's used blockchain for. So that's one of the ways, because sometimes it might be very evasive. I mean, when you're reading these things and then it doesn't stick, probably because you're not technical enough. So one of the ways of doing this is actually to look at a lot of use cases and how they've kind of implemented it and the likes. And I think so when we're talking about metaverse as well, when we're talking about, there's a lot of intellectual property issues there, because you can take intellectual property in the real world and kind of implement it, use somebody's intellectual property in the real world and use it in the metaverse. So how do you kind of enforce such when you don't have access to, or you don't know where the person is? So we have that global issue there as well. Then when you're talking about privacy, and the last point that Mr. George made was when he was talking about assaults in the metaverse. And this as well, you need to also know how to kind of, I mean, as lawyers, if you're going to be litigating regarding issues in the metaverse, how do you establish that somebody has really assaulted somebody? And we have the thing is that ordinarily, if there's because as I said, everything you carry out in the metaverse has to an extent has real implications or repercussions. But not this time, because there are some capabilities that were in development some time ago, where you can feel whatever you're doing. I mean, you can get the actual feeling of whatever you're doing meaning that if somebody really actually harasses you or assaults you, you will actually feel it. Not that you have that psychological effects of what is being done in the metaverse. So all these things has to be put into consideration for you to know how to kind of defend or advise your clients appropriately, or even to sue on their behalf, to represent them. And another thing you need to learn in the metaverse, which I'm going to stop with, is you really need to learn about the different the different concepts like VR, AR, we have virtual reality, we have augmented reality, we even have extended reality. So how does all these things come together? Because you might, I mean, how do we have metaverse? I mean, what are the technologies that comes together to make up the metaverse? When you have augmented reality, are you still in the metaverse? Or it's only when you're using virtual reality that you are kind of in that virtual world? And so there's a lot of legal considerations, a lot of things to really think about. And because it is technical, you really need to, converse or have conversations with developers, as well as you kind of continue on this journey of learning emerging technologies laws. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ridwan, for running us through the technicalities around blockchains, NFTs, and metaverse. It was a really interesting discourse. You throwing light on the regulatory issues and loopholes and portals that comes with dealing with blockchains, NFTs, and metaverse. So quickly to run through to the next agenda for today, please, if you have a little lighting in your background before we take our presentation, can we just turn on our video so that we can quickly take a picture, and then we'll continue with the mentees presentation. So quickly, so that we don't waste time, please, can those that have lightning, a little lightning in your background, if you have a little lightning in your background, please turn on your video camera so that we can take a quick picture. Is that fine by us? Please, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much, Xiaomin. Okay, and please, I would like to ask, please, if it's possible, anytime we are coming for class, right, please let us change the names of our devices so that we know the people we are interacting with. We don't want a scenario where we are discussing, and then we don't want a scenario where we are discussing and we are trying to ask questions, but we cannot necessarily identify you. So thank you so much, Emanuela. Thank you so much, iPhone. Right, please, in the next class, if we can, I really appreciate if we can rename ourselves. So, okay, I'll be taking another one quickly. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Teslim. All right, thank you very much. And we are done with our pictures. So please, we would like to have our mentees presentation, and then we'll have feedback from our mentors, and then we'll take questions. I can see some questions on the chat box. So please, we want to have presentation from our mentees. We already sent your work to the mentors, they've looked at it, but we want to hear from you how best you research into the anything, and our mentors can give feedback to your presentation. So please, the presenter for today's class, please, you can go ahead, share your screen, and then start your presentation.
Good evening, everyone.
Yes, good evening, Emanuela.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, Emanuela, while you are trying to share your screen, please kindly note that the time allocated for presentation is 10 minutes. So please try and stick to that time frame if that would be possible.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Efemena Emanuela, and I'll be presenting on behalf of Group 1 in today's meeting. So, introduction to blockchain, NFTs, and Metaverse, and overall development of Web3. So, following the outline of our group work, I'll first talk on the evolution of the web, starting from Web 1 down to Web 3. So Web 1 initially started around 1989. It ran from 1989 till 2004, and it was also referred to as the static web. So basically, it operated by giving read-only content, like the users could not interact with what they saw on the website. They could only read, almost like an advanced version of a newspaper. So users could only use the technology by reading, but they couldn't really interact. They couldn't comment or share. They couldn't make their technology. Then we advanced to the second generation, Web 2, started around 2000 social web. So this version of the web gave us like a user-centric internet where users could interact with the websites, they could comment, they could also create. So it was more like a read-write web, unlike the Web 1 version. So in this version of the web, we saw the rise of social media platforms, we saw the rise of podcasts, blogs, and platforms like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, where users could create. But the one of the major differences between Web 2 and Web 3 is that in Web 2, the users could not really, did not own like their content, although they were able to create content and they were able to interact with the web. So this is the problem that Web3 now comes in to solve. Web3 in 2020 and is currently still on. It's also known as the decentralized web or semantic web. So here we see more of user empowerment. So users don't only own don't only create their content, they are also able to own their content. And this is where technologies like blockchain, NFTs, and Metaverse comes in to to like further the whole purpose of the web. So basically, the web aims to give users empowerment and then utilizes technologies like blockchains, NFTs to do that. So blockchain is the major technology present in Web3. Through blockchains, we see like decentralization of authority or control of like the internet. So there's no one tech company or corporation that owns content or owns like data on the web. Instead, it's like more decentralized, it's spread over a group of computers or computers in a chain, hence the name blockchain, right? Then with NFTs, ties their content, so they are able to have like digital assets. They can buy and sell, trade these assets in order to make money. And then with Metaverse, this is like, as we've already said, it's like a space, like a virtual space. So we see things like virtual reality, augmented reality. Yeah. I also wanted to say that with blockchain, I forgot to say, the introduction of blockchain was by the pseudonymous figure called Satoshi Nakamoto. So this was something that we discovered during our research. He basically was the one that, or the figure was the one that introduced or created Bitcoins and then like inspired things like the decentralized applications, decentralized finance and stuff like that. Then in the course of our research, we're able to find some problems or like I would say challenges that come with these technologies or with the evolution of the web. So one of the challenges we discovered was there's a challenge with scalability of particularly the blockchain technology. So the rate at which it can like expand has like, that's one of the challenges that we noticed. We also noticed there's a challenge of interoperability of the metaverse. So it's difficult to operate the metaverse like technology across different platforms. That was one of the challenges we noticed. And then also there are issues concerning, in as much as the blockchain comes to like solve the problem of security, data privacy, we also still see that that challenge isn't entirely like resolved. And even the main aim of blockchain to decentralize the internet, we see that some tech companies or corporations are able to find their way around this by owning like small assets. So they kind of centralize themselves in the decentralized application. So we looked at the future outlook of the web and the future outlook of these technologies. What can be done or what can we expect in the future? So just like we've seen the improvement of the World Wide Web over the years from the 1990s to present day, we expect that even these technologies, these blockchains, NFTs, and metaverse would improve. So they're not perfect now. They're not so perfect right now, but we expect that with time they would evolve and operate better. So the issue of scalability, interoperability would be solved with time. Then we also expect that with the use of AI, that's artificial intelligence, they would be more personalized. So the whole idea of the semantic web will also operate better. And we would expect that the AI would be able to give like better answers to user queries and stuff like that. So that's basically all for today concerning the topic introduction to Web3. And in conclusion, we know that these technologies, they have changed our outlook, they've changed our view of the internet, our view of the web, and we've seen like certain challenges that they have, but we still expect that if they are operated responsibly, if they are with innovation and responsible like use of the internet, we expect that these challenges that I have highlighted
be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emanuela, for helping us run through your group presentation. You were not assigned to be the group presenter, but you were able to step in on behalf of your group to make a presentation. And I say well done for still excellence, doing an excellent work in doing the delivery of the presentation. So well done to Emanuela, and well done to everyone in the group putting the effort to make sure that the presentation was brought to life. All right, so we want to head over to the mentors. I can see some questions are already on ground. But before we go over to the questions, I would like for us to hear from our mentors on their feedback as pertaining the presentation, and then we'll go straight to questions and answers. So, Mr. George, over to you, sir. Please, we'd just like to hear your take on the presentation that was made.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me. Sorry.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Oh, okay, well done. Yeah. Stepped up for a bit, but I think I got a good part of that. Well done, Emanuela, for the presentation, especially for the fact that here you were not the initial designated presenter, but well done to be able to step in and still hold your own.
Thank you, sir.
I think the presentation, I mean, it also shows when you participate, right? In group work, right? A lot of times group work can be given and we just leave it for one or two persons to do. You lose the opportunity for learning because where the learning comes is not much of it's not just in the class, but also a lot from you know when you try to do some work yourself and you because for you to be able to put a presentation together, you have to read a number of things and then try to digest and congest it into a few slides. So that whole process definitely is where also is significant part of that learning occurs. So well done. On the presentation itself, for the introductory part of this session, very well put. They try to capture or highlight all some of the key major elements of this thing we call blockchain, Metaverse, and NFTs. I think the only little missing element I would say they should look at when they are doing other presentation is try to bring it home, right? Try to relate it to you, especially when it comes to um, the legal profession, since that's where most of you are. Try to make meaning of any of those concepts within your context, right? Try to make examples that you can, as much as possible, localize them, right? So, and once you're doing that, it will even start beginning to make even more sense to you and even more eye openers to you, right? So I think that's the only comment to say and as per area of improvement, right, in your future presentation. Try to see how you can localize it to your space. Try to see how you can add a little bit of case studies or examples, right, that can relate or pass that message. The more they are localized, the better it is to pass your message across. But overall, it was a good job done, at least for the stage of the class. Well done.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. George, for that wonderful insights into the presentation. Please, we'd like to have Mr. Ridwan's comments, and then we'll go straight to questions and answers.
Yeah, I mean, I also commend Manuela for the job well done. Thank you for the presentation, and thanks to all of the participants as well, the group members that came together to do the work. And it was really good work because you were able to you were able to summarize 3 big emerging technologies into how many pages. So even though it's introductory, but then it's actually very, ordinarily I would have been expecting you to just explain blockchain, only blockchain in such a presentation, but then you're able to combine the three of them. But as I said, it's introductory, and that's the reason that I will say that there's actually lots of work to do. And yeah, I mean that shows that you're not able to go very in depth because you're looking at three different. I'll say two because blockchain NFT is a major topic on that blockchain. But when we're talking about different tokens, we talk about non-fungible. We have two major tokens actually, non-fungible tokens, and that's NFTs, and then we have tokens generally, which is very, very huge. I mean, very wide. That's where, when I was talking about security tokens, you talk about utility tokens, talk about, there's a lot of them. And digital, I mean, I don't even want to go deep into that now, but I think you just need to also go into some other topics, some other topical areas of blockchain. And I know you mentioned DAOs as well. Decentralized autonomous organizations. That's a very huge place to really. I'm actually working with a client presently that's looking into that. They've actually built such a a community or such platform, and they're looking at how to, because the thinking is that they don't want to be I mean they want to be self-governed, even though that's also, I mean, that can also be categorized under blockchain governance. So it's not, they don't want to be, I mean, that's the whole idea of blockchain. One of the major idea of blockchain, that's it's what they want to, I mean, the members want to be self-governed. They want to, sometimes it might be the system that's going to kind of decide on the process to go. Because another thing is that's where consensus also comes in, the consensus method. So if it is proof of stake, if it is proof of concept, which is the major or the main, the most famous one, so to say, the most popular one. So all these things, you really need to look deep into it. You need to look for courses on Coursera, look for courses on edX, even on LinkedIn Learning. So you really need to go deep into what these technologies are. And that's one of the things I think I can help with. There's a lot of courses to look into to just understand, because the thing is just to understand the technology. What is the essence of this technology? Why do we have it? And what can it do? And how does it affect? And why is the government, so why are regulators really concerned about it? So you just really need to go deep into these topical areas in these different technologies. And then when we talk about metaverse, I was talking about I mean, you just need to look at Web3 generally. Web3 is the is it the kind of the overseer, like it's the all-encompassing term that brings all of these technologies together. So you see how all of them kind of interacts, how they kind of how they're relatable, so to say. So I've spoken about VR, AR, XR. You need to look at all those things and how they kind of work together, and how artificial intelligence will how it even comes in, how it can be integrated into smart contracts or into the metaverse to for more personalized experience. So, and the legal implications of all this. So if you understand all these, that's when you will be able to come up, or that's when you'll be able to understand and come up with, or kind of identify the legal issues, the legal challenges, and the legal implications, and also apply regulatory requirements or provisions of law to all these things. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ridwan. Our mentors have given us just a brief insights into their own thoughts about the presentation that was made by the group. I want to encourage all group members to show commitment to the presentation. It's part of the learning process. So please, when we send the topics, please ensure to put in the effort to research, to do your research and compile your presentations so that your learning process will be better crafted for you to learn in this program. So we'll be going straight into the question and answer segments. We have a few questions on the chat box. I'll be reading them to our mentors, and I will just be sending the questions out as under open context, except under the circumstance where it was directed to a particular mentor. And then please, we still want to take live questions. If you still have questions, please, you can indicate by raising up your hand, and then we'll do well to take your question. So the first question I can see here is, I think it's a question from iPhone. Okay, thank you, Michael. But let's go through the question in the chat box first. So iPhone is asking, please, how can NFT and Metaverse leverage on blockchain technology? I think I would like to direct this question to Mr. George. The question, I think it was asked while he was making his presentation. So, sir, please, we are asking, how can how can NFTs and Metaverse leverage on blockchain technology? Please, sir, if you're with us, we'd like to hear from you, sir.
Sorry, was that for me?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Please take that question again. I think I just took off a minute.
Okay, the question is, how can NFTs and Metaverse leverage on blockchain technology?
Oh, okay. How NFTs and Metaverse leverage blockchain technology, yeah?
Yes, sir. That's the question,
so now I'm going to have to get technical, but let me try to put it this way, all right? So NFTs basically, we talked about. I think there's different elements and characteristics of blockchain technology we've talked about, right? One of them, critically for NFTs, is the fact that you cannot change records easily, right? Record or ownership is immutable, right? And when you, I mean, we all know what immutable is, right? Can't, it's not something you can just change, right? That security element or that part
Mr. George, we can't really hear.
Difficult to change how. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. We can hear you now, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, so I think I was saying that, right? One of the critical elements of, you can hear, I hope I'm still clear.
Yes, sir, you are.
Yeah, so I was talking about how one of the critical elements of the blockchain technology, right, is that immutable nature of it, right? That's, immutable, how difficult it is to change ownership records, right? And it's critical for NFTs because it is hard to, because it is immutable, right? The transactions relate to each other across a number of computers. NFTs leverages because the whole idea, the whole unique selling proposition of NFT is that the ownership, the ownership of that asset, right, is protected, is given. You can't change it without the person's that owns that asset, right, giving that asset to you. Or in some ways, you are able to get access to, the very thing that makes it unchangeable. Where we start talking about seed phrase a whole lot later, start getting really, really technical. But the key element is that because of that immutable nature of that ownership records, NFTs need it. NFTs, leverage it to provide that level of that level of security, that level of transparency, yeah, in when it comes to blockchain, or when it comes to delivering value. So for NFTs, that element or that characteristics of blockchain that makes it difficult for records to change change is how they leverage, is how that technology, drives the core value of NFTs, which is basically asset ownership, right? How you are able to uniquely identify and own assets, right? That is the whole long and short of NFTs. And that asset can be in any form, whether it's digital, whether it's physical, right? So, but you cannot have security, you cannot, it can't be valuable if it's not secure. It can't be valuable if the ownership can be easily modified. So that element that makes it difficult to modify that ownership is what gives that NFTs that value, leveraging blockchain, right? So that is a very key part. Now, when it comes to metaverse, right, you all know that metaverse leverages those virtual interactions, right? And key part of that virtual interaction are digital assets, right? Being able to exchange value in that metaverse world, right? And exchanging value, yeah, whether regardless whether it's an element of transaction like digital currency or otherwise, yeah, you cannot exchange value without some form of currency, without some form of assets that we both agree, right, have that level of value. So Metaverse leverages that element of the blockchain that ensures that uh, digital asset can be exchanged securely, can be traded, right? And can be authenticated. Like you can authenticate coins, you can authenticate that exchange of value to say you have given me X, for Y. And that Y that you have given me has this level of value in it that I can exchange in the future for even real money in the physical world, right? Or that thing that we have exchanged, right, has real impact in the physical world. So that ability for exchange of value to be powered with, by the blockchain is something that metaverse leverages, because if there's no means of exchange, the metaverse cannot work. It will be meaningless. If we are in a virtual interaction and we cannot exchange value, then it's definition of a game. It becomes like a game. That's the different definition. That's the difference between metaverse and game, right? If we cannot exchange value, real value that has implications, then the whole metaverse proposition becomes close to little meaning, having any significance. But the core significant thing around metaverse is that actual value can be exchanged. And what is powering that exchange of value, right, is blockchain. So that is how metaverse leverages blockchain, right, empowering value exchange. And NFTs leverage blockchain, empowering asset ownership, right, to drive, their different propositions, to everybody that uses them.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. George, for helping us run through that. I'm sure that the person who asked the question was able to get the answer that he wanted. So the second question here is, what regulatory landscape can we call metaverse, blockchain, and NFTs, like international law or municipal law? Mr. Ridwan, please, can you help us with that question?
Yeah, so quickly, I think it's actually both, and the reason we can categorize them under local and international is because we have local laws. I mentioned to you initially, and then we even have the blockchain strategy policy, which has not really been very well implemented yet. But we have certain local laws like the SEC rules and the guidelines, the CBN guidelines for financial institutions on how to interact or how to engage blockchain platforms. I wouldn't say blockchain platforms. It's just that there's a lot of issues, because when we're talking about the use cases of blockchain as well, I mean, what's it called? Is something that people don't. A big misunderstanding is that when we're talking about blockchain, we're talking about cryptocurrencies, and that's not so. cryptocurrency is just it's just like, I'm even afraid to use that example because we have that's misunderstanding as well, so to say, when people think that when you're talking about GPT, I mean, which is one of the forms, or one of the forms of AI, then you think that that is AI. They don't really think about other examples of AI. So what I'm saying in essence is that cryptocurrency, when you're talking about cryptocurrencies, that's not the only use of blockchain. That's not we have many other use cases. And but the thing, because of that, because of that, that's misunderstanding. I'm trying to look for another name, for another term for that, but let's just call it misunderstanding. Because of that lack of understanding, even if you're registering, when you're registering with CAC and you're registering a blockchain project, which is not related to cryptocurrencies, it might actually be flagged. I mean, there was a time when, especially the CPN issue, even though it wasn't illegal for you to operate cryptocurrencies, just as it was decided by the Federal High Court then, that CPN does not have the should I say, the authority, so to say, to ban the use of cryptocurrencies. But of course, the popular opinion was that it is illegal for you to, and of course, because of how enforcement agencies, especially the police, were also acting up. So people actually thought that cryptocurrencies was illegal in Nigeria then. And even a lot of people don't still know, including lawyers, that even CBN has actually relaxed their negative attitude towards blockchain, and there's even a guideline to. So we really need to be on top of that's on top of the trend, the legal trends regarding regarding the local developments of blockchain laws, or laws related to blockchain sector. And of course, it's also international because just like the client I was referring to operating a DAO, decentralized application autonomous organization, you tend to look at the possible laws because there's no way you're going to, even if you DAO, there's no way you're going to run away from the regulations. Governments will still want to protect their citizens. If it's so, there's a lot of developments going on in that regard. In Nigeria, I don't think because these DAOs will still want to register in a particular jurisdiction. So there's really no, I mentioned it as one of the issues with blockchain generally is regulatory clarity. So we haven't really have an established clarity regarding how DAOs are actually supposed to operate, if they have to register with a particular country or not. And of course, we have issues like that with some DAOs in the US. And that's the reason I would also say it's one of the areas you need to look at. We don't really have established or recognized regulations. I mean, it's not that it is an unregulated space. I mean, the blockchain space in the US, but we don't have regulations specific to blockchain issues yet in the US, like we have in the EU or the UK. So of course it's one of the places that we have a lot of activities going on, because they're using current regulations to kind of regulate the space, to regulate the parties in the space. So it's one of the areas you really need to look at to see how they are applying traditional regulations to the use of blockchain in that space. So as I believe I've answered a question that it is legal, it is local as well as international, and you really need to look at both the development of both areas of laws to really understand and appreciate, and also effectively advise your clients, or kind of grow in the space. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ridwan, and thank you to Slim for asking that question. So we have two questions here from iPhone. The two questions, I'll read them as one, and I think they are directed to Mr. Ridwan. So, please, Mr. Ridwan, the questions are, please, can you throw more light on data privacy as problems associated with blockchain, and do we need to seek consent of data subjects as well?
Okay. Okay, I think I'll start with the second question. I mean, because that is it's quite straightforward and also not straightforward, because when we talk about consent, it's a very complex issue. So when we're talking about consent, of course, the direct and simple answer to that is yes, you also need consent of data subjects. But of course, it's not every time you get consent. When we're talking about consent, it's actually categorized under the legal basis for processing personal data. Before you can process personal data, you must have a legal basis. You must have, this is the reason, this is the legal reason, any kind of processing. And don't mind you, when we're talking about processing, it means any interactions with data. It could be, of course, when we're talking as it relates to consent, it has to start from collection. So, but what I'm saying essentially is that before you can interact with data at any point in time, from collection to deletion, and what is in between, you might ask that what is in between collection and deletion. Of course, it's the actual process, which is the actual usage of the personal data to probably provide services, or to kind of come up with an analysis, or to even transfer to share with your partners, so that they can probably provide services to that individual on behalf of your company. Or if it is you using it to build AI, your AI products. So there's a lot of things. Or if it is you archiving it, all those, anything you're using any interactions with personal data is processing. So so I say that before you can do anything with personal data, you need a legal basis, and consent is one of it. And as professionals, private professionals used to say that consent should even be your last option. If you can't hold on to any of we have 6 legal bases, any of the other 5 legal bases, that's when you go to consent, because there's a lot of requirements. There's a lot of what's it called, pre-requirements, so to say, before you can use consent, in terms of it has to be before if you want to collect, if you want to get consent, if what you call consent will be consent in the actual sense, then it has to be specific, it has to be direct, there's a lot of there's a lot of obligations on you. So another legal basis for you to understand legal basis very well. Sorry, it's not. I've said it's not in the application class, but just for you to understand how privacy relates with blockchain and other areas that we're talking about, is that legal basis, a common one also is what's it called, provision of services. So one of the reasons you could collect personal data is because you want to provide, maybe let's say child deck. Yeah, you want to ensure that you want to sign up on child deck because you want to use their services. And if they are not going to be doing anything with your personal data, or the only thing they want to do is just to ensure that they are sending whatever you need to you, whatever food or whatever items you need to use. So the only thing they just need to do is collect your data. They'll tell you that, okay, this is what you're going to, these are the personal data we need. Maybe your name, your address, your phone number and address, for them to deliver that item. Then that's the only thing they need to do. They don't really need to get your consent, so to say. But when they now need to send you marketing communications, marketing emails, that's when they need to get your consent, because there's no legal basis for them sending. They can't say that is legitimate interest, which is one of the legal basis. They can't say that this is the reason we want to, send you, they have no reason to do that in the first place. So they need to let you know that they are going to send you marketing emails before they start sending you the email. That's an example of when consent is needed. And you can't really hold on to any other legal basis. So I think I've told you 3 legal bases of processing data for free now. So when we're talking about as it relates to blockchain, so if what you're doing, anyways, and this I will move to the general issues that we're talking about. I mean that data privacy issues we have relating to blockchain. I'll jump into that now. But when you're talking about consent on the blockchain, it is also a complex issue because when you're getting consent, they tell you that when you're given consent, it should be actually because of course companies will want to make it as simple as possible for them to get your consent. So they want to put the check box that's at the bottom of maybe the form that you should consent that they're going to process your data in this manner. And the data protection laws also requires that it should be easy. The way you were able to opt in to give consent, it should also be very easy for you to, to kind of take back your consent, so to say, to to refuse or to stop the that company from processing your personal data. Sorry, were you saying something?
I said withdraw.
So when we're talking about, okay, great. So when we're talking about some of the issues with blockchain, that's where it comes in, from this consent, because it also extends to the rights that a data subject has, the rights that a customer has. So you have different rights, rights to access, rights to deletion, rights to be forgotten, which is the same as rights, to delete, your right to ask the company to delete your data. You have all the rights to rectify and the likes. So two major rights that a data subject has that is very difficult to execute on the blockchain, because one of the major characteristics of the blockchain, which is immutability. You can't change, you can't modify anything you have on the blockchain. So you don't have that, you can't exercise the right of rectification to modify your personal data on the blockchain. And you can't also exercise your right to deletion because the data can be deleted. And even when we're talking about privacy in the real sense, you really don't have, I mean, there's that issue with privacy as well, because everything is transparent on the blockchain. So but because you will ask me, one of the questions I would like you to ask me, you can think about that. Maybe I'll give as an example is that, of course, one of the principles of data privacy is transparency. I mean, the first principle actually is lawfulness, transparency, and fairness, or lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. So the assignment I'll give you that I would like if you can give me an answer to is, what is the difference between the transparency characteristic of blockchain and the transparency principle of data protection? And they're actually different, just to give you a gist into that, a kind of tip. So those rights can't be, and those data subject rights are actually very germane. They are very integral to data protection generally. And as a technologist, as a technology enthusiast, I'm not saying all of these things to say that you can't use blockchain, because what I'm very big on is actually to provide solutions to all these, and they're actually solutions. We are guessing, yes, we have privacy-centric blockchain platforms now. We have ways that you can, different ways that you can ensure that you can delete your personal data, but it's not being written on the blockchain. So there's a lot of ways, and I won't want to go into that. But another issue that has to do with one of the data protection principles, data protection, that has to do with that contravenes, or one of the blockchain issues that contravenes data protection principles is data minimization. So because because ordinarily data minimization also, it's similar to data deletion. When data minimization means that you don't collect as much data as you only collect as much data as you need. So meaning that if you have more data, so you ought to delete, you have to not even ought to, you must delete those additional data that you have that you don't need, when it's difficult for you to really enforce or to to exercise or to implement that particular principle, on the blockchain. So those are the issues. So those are some of the issues that you have on the blockchain in terms of especially when it comes to immutability and transparency. So I think I'll just so those are the issues that, of course, but as I said, there are solutions for you to. And then one of the things you can also look up that is being used to resolve that issues is something called a part of privacy enhancing technologies. One of the areas I'm very passionate about. So these are technologies that you use to enhance privacy protection or data protection, in the sense that it allows you to use personal data in a very privacy-centric way, in a way that is going to protect those personal data. It's going to reduce the propensity or the possibility of even a breach, or of there's something called disclosure, because it's not only, that's the important thing, that's also, it's not a data protection class, so I'll stop here. One of the things you really need to know is that that will also show you that privacy is different from, it's totally different from, I won't say totally, it's very different from cyber securities, because there's a lot of infractions, a lot of privacy breaches that are different from cybersecurity breaches. When we talk about cybersecurity breaches, we talk about data breaches, when you have cyber attackers having unauthorized access to your this thing. But when you're talking about privacy breaches, you can start from you not even having a privacy notice. That's an infraction. And that was what happened to Fidelity. Or doing DPIA, doing this, doing that. So and that's is also related to some of the issues we have. But then I'll just stop there and hope that we can have this, we can extend this conversation at a later time. But don't forget my assignments, the difference between the transparency characteristics of blockchain and transparency principle of data protection. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ridwan. I hope our mentees are taking note of that question. Please, you can write it down. The characteristics difference between the principles of data protection and the characteristics difference of the principles of blockchain. So please, you can take note of that, so that come the next class where we'll be having Mr. Ridwan, you can give an answer to that question. I think I still see one more question here, and then we'll be taking Michael's question. The question here is, are there substantive laws in Nigeria as regards blockchain technology and practice? Okay, I think Mr. Ridwan has shed a little light on this, but I don't know if there's anything he would like to add. He made mention earlier that currently there are not so much laws, but here and there regulations have started popping up. So, Mr. Ridwan, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, just as you said, you're correct. I believe I've answered that. So, and the questionnaire can let us know if it needs further explanation on that. But of course we have but they are not we have blockchain related. I've mentioned three things: the CBN guidelines, the SEC rules, and then we have, even though it's not a law, but it's a kind of policy, we have the blockchain strategic and policy that was, I think, maybe 2 years ago that was issued. And just like we have the AI strategic policy was issued recently. So we have that of the blockchain as well. So I think it's one of the things you can actually look into to see how you can also contribute to the space, what you can do in terms of training or education, in terms of capacity building, in terms of even working with the governments to kind of enrich the space. So it's not just about cryptocurrencies, actually. So there's a lot to be done there. So you can look at those laws that I've mentioned and documents or documentation to really understand how our legal landscape interacts or intersects with the blockchain space.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ridwan, once again. So please, Just to, in rounding up the class, just to give room for one more question. Michael, please, you raised your hand the last time. Please, if you have your question ready, please, you can kindly ask, and then we'll just be closing the session after your question. So, Michael, over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can hear you.
I would like to thank Mr. Ridwan and Mr. George. I mean, it's been an enlightening and eye-opening session for me because nothing has always been technical for me. I think I have understanding of it a bit. So I actually have two questions which are initially, but Mr. Ridwan has done justice to one, which is the issue of how data privacy and protection relates to blockchain. Can you hear me clearly, sir?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you now. Please go right. Go right.
Sorry. So, which is how data privacy and protection issues on data privacy and protection in the blockchain, because one of the topics I'm currently proposing, one of the proposed topics I submit to my faculty for my final year project, waiting for approval, is data privacy, issues of data privacy and protection in the blockchain, and then the solution. But I think I'll reach out to you, give some. So my second question is on
Sorry, I
I
didn't
think
get
that
your
would be
first
directed
question
to
very well.
Mr. George.
Come again.
What did you say, sir?
Yeah, it seems you're breaking up, so I can't hear you very well.
Oh, can you hear me clearly now, sir?
Hello, are you still speaking, Michael?
Yes. I can hear him. I don't know why Mr. Ridwan cannot hear you, but me, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, you can continue then. Just let's see. I mean, after when it's done, you can just let me know what his question, because I can't hear him.
All right, please continue the question.
All right,
I would
okay,
pass it on to
all right, sir. So my second question is to Mr. George. Is there, because from what you've explained so far, is like it seems blockchain is an effective means or medium for keeping information and storing things. My question is blockchain not vulnerable to cyber attacks? Say probably, one of the issues we are currently having in the tech space now is different attacks among all these hackers hacking into systems and then casting away important information and all. So I want to ask that, is blockchain one question? My third question, and I'll be to Mr. Aridwan. For one to practice as possibly a blockchain lawyer or someone that has interest in blockchain governance and policy, is it necessary? Is it compulsory that one also learn it advisable to have a proper understanding of it? So those are my two questions, sir.
Sorry, we did not hear the last question.
All right, the last question is can you hear me clearly now, sir?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I said the last question is for someone that has interest or wants to pursue a career in blockchain lawyer and or have interest in blockchain governance and policy, is it mandatory or compulsory for that person to learn the technical aspect of it, or is it just advisable to learn it just to have a proper understanding of it, sir?
All right. Thank you very much. Michael, for your question. So in relaying your question to the mentors, I think for Mr. Ridwan, he started out by saying that the first question you wanted to ask was related to that of data privacy, but since you have addressed it, that is fine. That his final year project that he's submitting to his faculty, waiting to be addressed, or waiting to be approved rather, is on data privacy as relates to blockchain, something in that line. And he was asking if he could reach out to you privately for a personal chat for that. Firstly, I want to say you can always connect with our mentors, right? You can always reach out to them, tag them on on LinkedIn, and I'm sure Mr. Ridwan would do well to connect with you, and then you can get as much help as you want from his end. All right, the second question he asked was directed to Mr. George, and he was asking if, since you spoke about the immutability of the blockchain technology and how the security phase around it, that is, what are the chances of the blockchain platform being exposed to cybersecurity threats? So that is the question he asked. So Mr. George, we would like to hear from you. What are the likelihoods that the blockchain can be under cybersecurity threats, can be attacked by cybersecurity hackers?
Okay, I'll try to keep that response short because the time is fast spent. I think we should so that we don't keep people very long late into the night. We should be very controlled around the timing of the class because there's what they call diminishing returns when people anything you're saying just going into one ear and leaving the other ear. Once you stretch knowledge for too long, then you lose people along the way. They will just be here, but they're not here. Right. So, but pick one to your answer is the fact around security. Um, yes, all the wonderful things we said about blockchain doesn't mean that it is perfect. Nothing is perfect. Everything comes with its imperfection. However, the biggest reason or the biggest challenge around blockchain security is the fact that, um, without being too technical, a lot of that security depends on you, right? There's what we call custodial and non-custodial, right? How you manage, your wallets, right, in the blockchain space. So custodial is where you're giving somebody the right, to manage your assets, right? You're giving the person just like how you have a safe in your house and you give somebody the key to that safe, right? Or so that's when you hand the custody of that thing over to the person and call it custodial. And then the other is non-custodial, where you take responsibility of having the key of your safe. So what happens is that somebody get access through to you to that key, the person can get access to your safe. So if you misplace that key, you misplace your safe. And that's why you hear some people tell you somebody lost, their key, right? And they can't access whatever amount of money they had in one computer, that they misplaced, right? That's because they stored their key in that computer. So the security aspect is if it's a non-custodial situation, it is you responsible for your security. So anything that can happen to you in the normal world today can happen to you, and somebody have access or gain access into that security and into you and get access to your security and do it. If it's custodial, that means you hand over your key to an organization or a platform. So what happens is that anything that happens to that platform happens to and somebody is able to get access to your key, then it becomes easier for somebody to hack into you. So it depends on it. So both of them have their security challenges, whether it's custodial or non-custodial. But you have more issues where people are non-custodial because it's easier to hack into you. It's easier to get access to your stuff than when it's in some a key management system by some special companies that do all that. We'll get into all those details later. But basically, that is the two types of security architecture around managing things in the blockchain. So that it's you custodial, non-custodial, or it's by a third party that you have handed that over to manage and secure for you. And any of those breach can have access to that key. Thank you very much and good night, everybody.
Thank you so much, Mr. George. The last and final question that Michael asked, and straightforward to Mr. Ridwan, is he asked if is it necessary or is it mandatory for someone who, as a lawyer who is trying to get into the blockchain space, if it's mandatory to go into the technicalities of it, or is it just advisable?
Yeah, it's just advisable. I'll also go straight to the point. I agree with Mr. George that we should, kind of manage these meetings, for maximum, effectiveness. So to the answer again, yeah, it's not mandatory. It's not mandatory at all. And you will even find lawyers tech lawyers that says that you shouldn't even, go deep into the technical area. What I'll just say is, we just talk to a lot of developers, we can advise them, you can, intern in blockchain companies and see how things work and see, what you need, just assess what you need yourself. But generally, it's not mandatory for you to learn the technical aspect before you understand the legal aspect. But for me, it's as I see a lot of benefits in doing that. And the reason I'm also saying that you don't need to do it, it's not mandatory, and you shouldn't even do it, is because it takes a lot of time. Law is enough on its own. There's a lot of things to read internationally and locally. And then you're adding technology, which is also very, very expansive and changing all the time. So you need to, we have different versions of Solidity, maybe every now and then. So it's not really, it's not mandatory, but I won't say it's not advisable. If it is your own flair, if you have flair for programming, or you want to try things out, then you can, look at what you can learn it, but really not going to it as far as, just look at yourself, kind of assess yourself and see what is actually good for you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ridwan. With that, we've come to the end of today's class. We'll take cues from this particular class to better manage the class ahead of the next session, so that we do not overshoot our time by any minutes. So once again, thank you to our mentors that have been here with us for the past 2 hours, shedding light on the introduction to blockchain, NFTs, and Metaverse. And like they rightly said, this is just the introduction. I'm sure over the course of the next few weeks, we'll be going more in depth and looking at very more technical things as pertaining this particular space. So once again, thank you to our mentors, thank you to our mentees for sparing out your time. Please try and put in efforts to work better on your presentation. Ahead of next week, I'll be sending the assignments in by God's grace this evening. So we've come to the end of today's session. Good night, everyone, and thank you very much.
Yeah, good night. Bye-bye, everyone.